You're live. All right. Welcome to Hammer Down Huddle, where me, Chris Ortiz, and my co-host Alex Rockhold talk about the Purdue football season. Tonight we are going to talk about the defense. And again, I am Chris Ortiz. I am an admin on the Boiler Diehards Facebook page. And after just looking at it, we only need 50 more people to be members of the group before we can officially fill Mackey Arena. There's 38 pending requests to join the page on our. So get your friends joining and fill up Mackey.
Yeah, like Chris said, this is Alex Rockhold, and throughout the season, we're just going to be talking Purdue football specifically. We're going to have some Wednesday shows and some recap shows to the football games. So we're looking forward to that tonight, specifically talking defense, and I mean just a little extra background for those who might not have been on previous shows. I'm a Purdue grad from 2020. I graduated under the Polytechnic Institute, technically, with a degree in mechatronics, and I love Purdue football. I was an avid Purdue football follower. I was at all the games. It was a integral part of all 4 years for me at Purdue. So excited to get into this football season and see what is in store for us this season. I think it's going to be a better season than we're expecting, but we'll get there when we get there. So
All right, I'm just posting some things so people can join different platforms, YouTube and Facebook Boy Diehard page. So, all right, like we said, we are going to talk defense tonight. And we are going to start off on the defensive line with Will Helt on the left side, left edge. And I actually just read an article on Sports Illustrated where he's now got the term of the Terminator on the team because he's made such a big jump from his freshman to sophomore. I mean, he's a 6'6", 265-pound guy from Carmel. He appeared in all 12 games last year. He only had 12 tackles, 8 solos, and 1 for a loss. He recorded at least 1 tackle in 9 games, made 2 tackles against Fresno State, Syracuse, and Ohio State. But like I was saying, I just read an article where Kane, the defensive coordinator, was raving about him, talking about how he is the Terminator and how he's made a huge jump, and really excited. I just watched a part of the spring game, the offense versus defense, where he dropped back into coverage and returned a pick 6. So hopefully big things come from him on the line. Anything else you have to add on him? Go ahead, Alex, as I try to get some more stuff.
Yeah, Will Helt, I think that's kind of how you pronounce his name. But Carmel guy, I love to see like an Indiana guy has the Indiana roots, so like that's always exciting to get a guy like that. Number 5 prospect out of Indiana, and he was the number 40 edge rusher. So I think the big thing with him is that last year we saw him more at the linebacker position. So I think it'll be interesting because this is one of those changes this year. He played some at linebacker this year, and he's kind of making that shift to like a full-time left defensive end. The exciting thing with him, as Chris said, is that linebacker, defensive end, he has both those skills. So he's one of those guys who can line up on the end and then drop into coverage if you need to, whatever reason, for whatever scheme. So I'm excited with his versatility and to see how that kind of fleshes out this year. So moving on, this is a newcomer to Purdue football. His name's Shida Silla, and he is a senior. He is 6'4" and 251 pounds. He's from New Jersey initially, but he transferred from Boston College. So This is as many of you guys know, like losing Nick Scorton to Texas A&M, and with Kydron Jenkins falling back to linebacker, like we needed to fill in that defense of end position again. So it was good to bring in a transfer. I think he's really gonna help us. I just think he'll help us as we try to bolster that position again. So a little bit about him. So I'll talk a little more recently about him in the last year, and then I'll touch a little bit on those previous years. He was a redshirt senior at Boston College. He played in 8 games. He finished the year with 14 tackles, 3 tackles for losses, and 2 sacks. His season high was 4 tackles against Georgia Tech. So Boston College is, historically a pretty decent football school, but I mean, he's played in lots of games throughout his time there, dealt with some injuries, things like that. I think this year we can look for him to be that depth for us and somebody with experience. I'm not sure if he'll at any point in the season if he'll ever start. We'll have to see as the season goes, but it's just a guy who's played a lot of games throughout the years. So I'm looking forward to seeing him as a Purdue Boilermaker.
All right. Yeah, and that was better covered on him than I would have given. So I'll continue on to what would you have next on here? Nose tackle?
Yeah.
All right. So we got nose tackle Cole Brevard, senior, 6'3", 330 pounds, from Carmel, but a transfer from Penn State. So he's familiar with the competition in the Big Ten, which is nice to have. He appeared and started in all 12 games as a redshirt junior, ranked second in the Big Ten and 19th nationally with team high 2 fumble recoveries. He totaled 9 tackles on the year, including 6 solo and 2.5 tackles for loss. He had 1 sack and a loss of 7 yards versus Michigan on November 4th. Racked up a season highs 3 tackles and a win over Illinois on September 30th, which was my birthday. Just throwing that out there. Total of 2 quarterback hurries at Virginia Tech and named an academic All Big Ten player. So a bright guy and has some experience at the Big Ten level and just experience on the line, which is huge. So
Yeah, as you said, just a big guy, 6'3", 333, and that's what you need for a nose tackle. And he's a transfer from Penn State, but he's been with Purdue for a couple years, so good to see him, sticking around, not jumping schools and going elsewhere. So it's encouraging to see him as he continues to develop, and we're looking forward to watching him as a senior this year. I'm pretty sure this would be his last year with his COVID year. So.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you go ahead and start on the next guy and pronounce that name. And
next we have Mo Omanode, and so this would be our backup nose tackle. I guess we didn't really go over this at the beginning, but we're kind of going. It's kind of like a depth chart per se. Like when we go through the positions as we get down the list, it's going to be the backups. So Mo Omanode is the projected backup for Cole Brevard. He's a junior. He's 6 foot, 286 pounds, and he's from West Lafayette. So it's a local guy. As a sophomore last year, he appeared in all 12 games. He totaled 14 tackles, 2.5 for a loss, and 2 sacks on the season. He established a new single game career high in sacks, 1.5, and 2 tackles for a loss with 2 against Northwestern on November 18th. He also had 3 tackles that game, which matched his season high. So this is a guy, he was a sophomore. He was still developing and growing, and he got some good playing time last year and was able to develop more. So excited to see him. And I mean, he's backing up this year still, but I think it's just, this is good to have depth on the line. The line rotates in and out a lot. So you might see him on like a third down or like things like that. So you're going to see these guys rotate in a lot. So excited to see him play. Do you have anything else on Mo?
I do not. I'm still trying to figure out how to add different, to add our show to different places. But I don't have anything on him, no. Like I said, he's just another experienced guy back up and can never have too many backup on the big men. So just keep it rotating and see who can get in and make a difference out there.
Yeah.
Damari, I think that's how, Damari Lewis.
DeMar J. Lewis.
Damar J. Lewis, okay.
Yeah.
He is a transfer from, unfortunately, IU, but hey, he got it right at some point in his career. From Griffin, Georgia. As a redshirt junior, he appeared in the first 2 games of the year against Fresno State and Syracuse before sustaining an injury. And then junior, he missed due to a season-ending injury during preseason camp. But as a sophomore, he appeared in all 12 games with 3 starts, 8 tackles, 3 solos, tackle for a loss. So, I mean, his injuries is a little concerning, but it's not like he's a guy that we're obviously counting on all of our players, but he's not first guy we got to worry about. So, I mean, as a potential backup, he's a good player there. So, let you continue talking about that.
Yeah, with DeMar J. I mean, yes, an Indiana transfer, and he's been with Purdue for a couple years at this point. So he was at Indiana for his freshman year, and he's been in Purdue's program for a couple years now. It's unfortunate that like you get a transfer in, we have that excitement behind him, and then had a couple season-ending injuries. So yeah, I think when we look forward to this year, we hope that a guy like that can stay healthy, even if he's not our top guy. You always hope that those guys. I mean, don't wish injuries upon anyone. So hoping for a healthy year and hoping for a season like a sophomore year where he was able to play in all 12 games with 3 starts and have a year more like that. So
And hopefully it's 13 games this year. But
yes, yeah, one more. But so moving on, we're going to move over to defensive tackle. The projected starter for defensive tackle is Joe Anderson. He is a senior. He is 6'4", 290 pounds, and this is another transfer. So he transferred from South Carolina. He's been with Purdue for several years at this point. So it's another transfer, but it's a transfer that he transferred after his freshman year at South Carolina, and he's been with the Boilermakers for several years after that. Last year, as a redshirt senior, he appeared in all 12 games for us. He made a tackle in 11 of those 12 games, so he's a consistent contributor, even if it's just for a tackle or 2 a game. 16 tackles throughout the season, and 9 were solo, and 2 were tackles for losses. So, I think when you look at this too, you got to remember last year we had Nick Scorton and Kydron Jenkins on the edge, and like they were beast, So like even like at that, like Joe Anderson was garnering attention and helping them get freed up, and even if they're not the most productive player, as like we saw with Kydron Jenkins or Nick Scorton, it's good to have those guys that consistent. They require attention, and this is a guy that, as things shift, productivity could shift year to year. So we're hoping that with continued development, things like that have a good final year with the Boilermakers.
all right, and then moving on, we got Jeffrey Ba.
Emba.
Not
I'm
really.
pretty sure it's Emba. Yeah.
We got a lot of names on here that we'll have to hear to solidify how you say it. He is a senior, a 6'6", 302-pound lineman. Transferred from Auburn initially. In 2023 as a junior, he appeared in all 12 games. Total 12 tackles with 8 solo tackles and 2 tackles for a loss on the season. He recorded a tackle in 8 matches. Had 1 sack against the Ohio State for a loss of 4 yards. So it's a good resume there for his junior season. And that was his first year at Purdue, if I look at that right. He transferred after his sophomore season from Auburn. And if you want to go on about him and talking more, then go for it.
Yeah, it's just another big guy, defensive tackle, another guy who transferred from another like an SEC school. Big Auburn obviously is a some they've had some tough years, but they're generally a historic and good SEC program. So um, it's definitely nice to get a guy like that, and glad that once we do get transfers like this, that at Purdue as a program is able to keep these guys for several years. I think that's important for the continuity on the line, things like that. Especially the line, especially, lots of other positions it matters, but I feel like the defensive line coordination and things like that, like um, having them continue to develop together, I think is really important. So we're
Maybe
looking,
eventually when we get Isaac in here to join us, he can give us a little more insight on the line play and such, as he was a former player, and neither of us
yeah,
really were. We're just fans, so
yeah,
we don't have a whole lot of insight when it comes to the game. But
yeah,
and then
yeah.
our
Definitely him being a Manchester University is where he played, so definitely getting some experience on the line there. I mean, he has definitely college experience that he'll be able to share well with that and help us break down, line play particularly, where like I feel like maybe we might be a little more confident in other areas of play on the
oh yeah,
football field.
all right, and the last for the defensive tackle position, we have another transfer from Kentucky, another SEC school. I mean, even though it's that they've had some decent years recently, and as a redshirt sophomore at Kentucky, Jamarius Dinkins, he saw action in 11 games, totaled 9 tackles, a tackle for a loss, and 2 quarterback hurries. Posted a career high 3 tackles versus Missouri, and he got 2 tackles, including 1 tackle for a loss of 4 yards in the opener versus Ball State.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
this is just another guy who is at a big SEC school, maybe didn't crack the starting lineup and things like that. But when you transfer to like Purdue, you hope that like even here, it's like he might not crack the starting lineup, at the by the end of the year. But it's just it never hurts to get those guys that have depth and have practiced against some of the better football programs, day in and day out, like throughout the season, camp and things like that. That never hurts. So
Yeah, and just another big experienced guy on the line, and like we've said time and time again, you can't have too many of those. So
yeah.
move on to the right defensive end. We have sophomore transfer from Georgia, 6'4", 263 pounds, C.J. Madden. As a redshirt freshman at Georgia, he played in 7 games, recorded a tackle in games against South Carolina, UAB, and Florida. As a freshman at Georgia, he made his debut in a win over Samford. Not a whole lot on him there, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, this is a guy at Georgia. Obviously, they're a championship team at this point for multiple years. So he's been around. He knows what it's like to win. Um, even taking that culture, in the background of like what it takes to be like a dominant player at the highest level. So excited! Yeah, I have a buddy who worked for the Georgia football program for a couple years, and I asked him about him, and I think kind of just from him, he didn't know a ton, but he's like he could kind of tell he was a little raw, and it's just going to take some snaps and things like that to really kind of. I think he's going to be really good for us. I just think he kind of needs that experience, so I think it'll be a little bit. Um, he's going to have to really work at it for the beginning of the year and like grow into that role a little bit. But I think somebody who obviously got recruited to Georgia, like I mean that's a talented guy who I think just needs that experience. So, and I mean like that, like I said, like he was a high level recruit, 4 stars out of high school. He was the number 153 prospect nationally. So this is a guy that the talent is there, but it just needs the time and the reps to develop more. So moving on at right defensive end, and this is all these are projected positions at this point. That's one thing. Another thing to note. So some of these guys, like, by the time camp ends, like these players could really shuffle a little bit, depending on camp performance. So this is another guy I think we should be pretty excited about. He's coming from, a lower level of play. His name's Jaira Ojada, and he's 6'4", 267 pounds, and he's a transfer from Franklin College. So he's got to get up to a Big Ten level of play, but he's being a senior at this point, using his COVID year. Last year he played in all 10 games for the Grizzlies. He was the HCAC Defensive Player of the Year, just the fourth in program history. So, yes, this is a D3 level of football, but this is a guy who is very productive at the D3 level, and he has the size, and, it's going to be, how can he adapt to, Big Ten Division I reps? So I think it'll be interesting to see how he develops. Just a little more on him. He had a career high 53 tackles, 32 solo, and 17 tackles for a loss last year. So, that is a very productive year, no matter what level you're at. I just look for a guy like him to just continue to develop and really grow into, a Big Ten level of play. So looking forward to him backing up CJ. I think he's definitely going to get those reps with CJ also being a little raw. So it's we're going to need him. So,
and living only 15 minutes from Franklin College, as I do, they're a competitive athletics program all around. So I mean, we had some former classmates, both of us, that I think played at Franklin College, and they were studs at our high school team. So they were some good players going in there. And we will move now to outside linebackers with Yanni Karloftis, little brother of George, a 6'3", 235-pound junior. As a redshirt sophomore, he appeared in all 12 games and had, with 8 starts, fourth most tackles on the team with 55 total, including 28 solo tackles. He established a career for tackles on a single game with 9 against Ohio State, leading the team in the contest. Total 2.5 sacks for 13 yards on the season. Had 1 fumble recovery against Ohio State, and racked up 8 tackles in the game against Illinois, again on September 30th, and then again on October 28th against Nebraska. So just a knowledgeable football player who had a big trajectory after his brother starred at Purdue, and we just expect him to keep his brother's legacy going and make his own at the same time and shine at linebacker.
Yeah, and just going back to talking about Yanni a little bit, it's one of those things where his older brother was obviously here, and when we were on the recruiting trail after him, it's you really hope that you could get a guy whose brother played here. And I mean, this is Yanni was a 4-star prospect. I mean, he was getting recruited by big schools. I'm pretty sure Penn State was pretty heavy on him, if I remember right. So, this other big and really productive and successful programs were really after him. So I'm glad that he stuck with the family and came to play for the Boilermakers. So, and I just think, as a junior this year, I think that's sometimes when these players make huge jumps. So I'm really hoping that he continues to develop, and I'm really looking forward to him because there's a lot of hype for him coming out of high school. So we're really looking forward to that for him this year.
And the one thing I want to add on all the defensive players, with it being their second year in this program, with the new established Ryan Walters defense that they were adding, I'm excited to see a lot, I don't know how to say it, but just better grasp of what his view is, and maybe a little closer to what he ended with at Illinois and had them as a top defense in the country. Not saying we will be that, but I'm saying much better than what we were last year. So,
yeah. Moving on, another outside linebacker position, and the thing with linebackers too is that they can. I mean, they have their primary, but linebackers rotate some, and they're always shifting, and it just depends, play to play. So just to keep that in mind with linebackers, and we'll touch into that some with cornerbacks and things like that as well. But Owen Davis is the projected backup for him. He's a redshirt freshman. He is 6'3" and 245 pounds. He did not appear in any games last year, but coming out of high school, he was a consensus 3-star prospect, number 41 recruit out of the state of Ohio, and number 84 linebacker prospect, according to ESPN. So, he very productive in high school. During 2022, he racked up 91 tackles, 14 for a loss, 5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles his senior year. So this is a very talented player coming out of the state of Ohio, which is a great football state, as we've said before. So we hope that he just continues to develop. As he being a freshman last year, this is a guy that we'd expect to get some playing time this year in year two. And also you redshirt, so you can only play in a couple games anyway when you redshirt. So he's burned his red shirt now. So this is no slouch of a backup. So we're looking forward to seeing him develop and play for our Boilermakers this year.
Then moving on, we got a familiar last name that some might recognize, Joey Sumlin, whose father Kevin played for the Boilermakers. It looks like he's a redshirt freshman this coming year.
Yep.
So I mean, his first true year playing, and just having that background of family, the blood, Purdue's in the blood. So hopefully he just shows out. I can't really read the graphic there, so
yeah, he's a walk on too. So we pulled most of our information for the offense and defensive show off the Purdue Sports page. Like he didn't have any data on there yet. Being a walk on, being a red shirt. So this is someone too where it's year two, and with walk-ons, you really hope that maybe they can, touch the field their junior, senior year, things like that. Because just depends. They might need to, like he's 222 pounds, like probably needs to put on a little extra weight and things like that. So it's one of those things where kind of a long-term development process. So, but this was a guy who played. I'm pretty sure he played at IMG, if I remember right. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I said. Yep.
Yeah, he played at IMG, so obviously a big powerhouse school down in Florida where lots of players go to play. And his senior year, played in 14 games. He had 68 solo tackles, 31 assists, so 99 total tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss his senior year, and he played some his junior year, but he only tallied 17 tackles his junior year. So this was a guy who really took time to develop in high school, and at a big school like that, didn't crack the starting lineup really until his senior year. So it's a player that's, perhaps needs some more development, but this is a guy that we hope to continue to say his name, next year and the year after, and, maybe eventually starting for us. So.
All right. Moving on down to the middle linebacker position. A name we all recognize, and Kydron Jenkins, senior, 253. And he's a second-year senior, right? Like he's a graduate.
Yeah, this would be his, I guess,
or his
graduate COVID.
It's weird with COVID year.
Yeah, I think this is maybe it's either this year or next year. I think where we'll have the last of the COVID years.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. So, but graduate COVID, he's essentially a super senior at Purdue. This will be his last year. So, but
yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean everybody knows Kydron Jenkins. He across the line, on the other end from Nick Scorton. So we had a very productive duo at defensive end last year. Obviously lost Nick Scorton to Texas A&M. It was great that we could keep a player like Kydron Jenkins, very productive. All Big Ten honorable mention last year, 4th team All Big Ten. He last year he finished second in the Big Ten in tackles for loss with 15.5 on the year. So that is a really productive year as a defensive end. Like obviously, like leading or second in the Big Ten, that's a big deal. Let's see. First Boilermaker to lead the team in tackles for loss in back-to-back seasons since Jake Replogle in the 2014-2015 season.
And if you're part of the DIR page, you see me post every morning my top 31 players. I'm doing one a day, every day until game day, of Boilermakers since 2010. And he is coming up. Jacob Plogel is coming up. So keep an eye open for that.
Yeah, and I just want to touch a little bit on Kytron Jenkins too. He's changing positions this year, as all of us know. He was defensive end last year, so that's obviously a big change. It's one of those things where it's like it kind of makes you a little shaky, but it's like I have trust in Ryan Walters and the coaching staff that they are making good choices. And I mean, ultimately, basically, what kind of the idea behind moving him to linebacker is that this is more of a position where he's going to be able to shine more. I mean, he's obviously and shine more. Obviously, he was very productive last year at Purdue as a defensive end, but like if like NFL aspirations, like realistically at his size and things like that, like he needed to make this switch over to linebacker. So it makes me a little worried, but I'm like, oh, I trust in them, and I'm looking forward to see how that transition makes. And that's kind of also how Will Held kind of switched to defensive end too. So they're kind of swapping. I think ultimately that's going to be good for them both, like for their long-term aspirations, career aspirations in the NFL. So
yes, and I'm going to trust a defensive Ryan Walters mind in that aspect, especially in that position. Not as much necessarily the secondary, but still, I mean, defensive mind. He knows what he's talking about, so just trust that there.
Yeah, and I guess we're gonna move on to the next player here in a second. But the other thing with him too is that when you do move a guy from defensive end to like a linebacker or something like that, this is a guy who this year this is a linebacker who is going to be blitzing at times. Like a guy who has 15.5 sacks last year. There's just no way that he's not going to be chasing the quarterback on some blitzes at times. And I think we're going to see some sacks and tackles from losses, and he's going to be productive in that regard too. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how that transition, works out this year. But
all right, and then backing him up, we have redshirt freshman Winston Berglund from Carmel, 6'2", 235. As a true freshman, he did not appear in any games. So, I mean, they use that as his red shirt, and now he says he's still technically a freshman with his red shirt. So, I mean, still got 4 years of him, and hopefully he learned some things. And he's from Carmel, Indiana, so a good football school, a good big football school in Indiana that we've had several recruits from in the past. He was a 3-star recruit, and he ranked as the number 60 safety in the nation, number 11 overall. So that's interesting as a mid linebacker going from high school. He's a safety, so you'd think he'd be a smaller ish guy. Now he's a mid linebacker, so you think he's being. I mean, he's still good size, 6'2", 235, but so it'll be interesting to see how he has made that position, that change overall.
yeah, I think something like this too that we see with them is that maybe being a safety in high school, and he's coming to a team where Ryan Walters is known for his defensive backs and safety, so that's a deep position. So I don't think that's going to be unheard of as for a player like that to make a transition to a nearby position, because I think with all the defensive back and safety talent we have, maybe to like crack the starting lineup and things like that, like he's probably going to have a better chance adjusting positions. And and I mean, we're going to touch on this kind of the end of the show today, but this is going to go along with the new position under the Ryan Walters defense. And that way, I think the other cool thing about Winston too is that 4 of his 5 grandparents attended Purdue. So like, this is a big Purdue family. It's really good to get people who, who love the school and then be able to get them in the program and have them play for the Boilermakers with that heritage.
Yeah, so he remembers some decent years at Purdue as a child growing up. He remembers some really bad years at Purdue as a teen, early teen, maybe late childhood, and then sees it kind of big again with Brom and hopes to be a part of its next big story.
Yeah. Yep. The last middle linebacker, inside linebacker that we're going to talk about today is Hudson Miller. He is a sophomore. He's 6 foot, 235 pounds, out of Cathedral, so Indianapolis native, another Indiana guy.
I skipped him. I'm sorry.
Nah, it's all right. No worries. I mean, a lot of these guys, I think we're going to see him rotate, and you know, I don't necessarily think this depth chart is set at this point. So, with camp still going, and obviously it's going to change throughout the season at times too. So, redshirt freshman, he appeared in 11 games. He was mostly on special teams though, so had 6 tackles, 2 solos on the season. He had a career high game with 2 tackles against Illinois. Academic All Big Ten, and then as a freshman he only played in 1 game. So this is just another guy who, I mean, he redshirted his first year. It's just another guy developing, and these are guys that we hope to keep in the program and crack the starting lineup eventually. So
now we get into the interesting part that a lot of people are excited about at Purdue, the secondary, starting off with cornerback Nyland Green, who is a transfer from Georgia. So, I mean, he plays first 2 seasons in Georgia, transfers. He knows Walters. He may not have been a highly projected player on the current team of Georgia. So he saw what Walters offered, and that's why he's at Purdue. And as a redshirt sophomore at Georgia, he played in 13 games, forced pass breakup, and had 2 tackles in the home versus UAB. He contributed for a tackle for a loss win at Vanderbilt. And yeah, he was a 4-star coming out of high school. And like you're a Georgia guy, so you know more about Georgia people than I will. So I'll let you go ahead and talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, like, he's still transfer from Georgia, but this is a guy who got a lot. Like, playing in 13 games at Georgia is a big deal.
Yeah, you're playing some big
in high school football and in Georgia also, it's just huge. I mean, everybody plays it. There's you get in those high division schools, it is a big deal. Lots of high level talent that's going to be going and playing in college and eventually in the NFL. So I'm really excited for Nyland Green. I'm excited to get a guy like that from Georgia. And I kind of categorized him as what we would consider a field cornerback at this point. So like, it's going to change here and there. There's different ways that as the schemes like throughout the season as they play out and things like that, he's going to be often more times on the big or the field side of the field side and not on the boundary side. So this is a guy who's going to be covering a lot of area. It's good to have a guy who's tall, 6'1", 186. So,
Sorry about that.
Yep, excited to see him play. I know he's going to be a big producer for us, and he's going to be on the field all year long. So, moving on, we have likely backing him up is going to be Derek Rogers Jr. He's a sophomore, 6'1" and 175. He played his high school ball in Florida. As a freshman last year, he appeared in all 12 games, making 4 starts. Those were against Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan, and Minnesota. So 4 starts against arguably some of our best competition: Ohio State, Michigan last year, Iowa. This is a guy coming back with some experience in Big Ten play specifically. He totaled 6 tackles, 5 solos, and he had 2 QB hurries and 3 passive breakups last year on the season.
which is
Um,
pretty good at a cornerback position to be pressuring the quarterback like that. So
yeah, yeah, just using him in blitz packages and things like that. So the secondary was not the best last year, but I think in year 2 under Ryan Walters, I think we're going to see improvement as we understand scheme better, and we got some really talented guys to really. I feel like the thing with Ryan Walters' defense to some degree is that I think it puts a lot of trust in players to like really like they need to like their independence, like
especially the
not a lot of
secondary.
help, yeah, especially safeties and things like that. So he puts a lot of trust in his linebacker and his cornerbacks and things like that, and that produces NFL talent, and we saw that with some of the guys he sent to the NFL from Illinois. So
And we've seen that in 1 year under the guy that we have coming up and a couple players under Dylan Thieneman. But
yeah,
we'll continue with cornerbacks. What's labeled as a boundary cornerback in Marquise Brown, who is a transfer senior, 5'11", 175 from Ole Miss. I mean, he's played with Purdue for a while. He transferred after his freshman year at Ole Miss, I believe. No, his sophomore year
yeah.
at Ole Miss. So last year was his first year at Purdue as a junior. He appeared in all 12 games with 11 starts, and he recorded 45 tackles, 32 solo, 3 tackles for a loss, and 2 team high, 2 forced fumbles. Had season high 9 tackles and season opener against Fresno State. Produced a strip sack that was recovered for a touchdown. Forced a fumble. Made 6 tackles and added a season high 2 breakups against Ohio State. So just another experienced guy coming from Ole Miss. So if I look back at our stuff, his high school pedigree was probably pretty high because Ole Miss, are they an SEC team?
SEC, yeah.
So I mean, obviously it's no slouch of a school, and just who has a high ceiling as coming out of high school, and nice to see him here as a pretty player and seeing how Ryan Walters can utilize him.
Yeah, and this is a guy who never used a red shirt. He came out of high school, and after time to develop in the college program with practices and camp and things like that, like he developed into like he played his freshman year. He played 5 games, and as a sophomore at Ole Miss, he played in all 13 games, 19 tackles. I mean, this is just a productive guy who's played a lot of football at the college level, and
And he was rated as a 4-star by ESPN, but 3-star by Rivals and 247.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he was ranked as the number 13 quarterback in the nation in high school and the number 35 player overall in Florida. Florida's a athletic, a state where you want guys at this position to be ranked well in, and so exciting to see him this year.
Yeah, as we've stated some with Ryan Walters too, this is a guy who saw what Ryan Walters did at Illinois, and he wanted to be a part of that up at Purdue. So he moved over to he transferred over to us, seeing what Ryan Walters did at Illinois, and then in year 1 he was productive for us, and this is year 2, and then hopefully with schemes and getting a better grasp on that, year 2 for the Boilermakers will be even better. Moving on to the other kind of boundary cornerback on the short side of the field, Butros Alessandro. He is a transfer junior. He is 6'1", and he is 186 pounds. So he transferred from Snow College, and he transferred after his freshman year. So he's had a full season with the Boilermakers at this point. Last year, he appeared in all 12 games, making 1 start at Michigan. He had 25 total tackles, 16 solo. He had 1 interception and a tackle for a loss against Wisconsin. His career high in tackles last year was against Michigan, so great football school. They obviously won the national title last year, so it was a great school, a great competition. He had 7 tackles and 6 solo tackles against them.
That's because they don't have enough film of him to study as a
Yeah,
player.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I just had to add that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, Michigan and if not everybody knows, Michigan's in a little bit of hot water for the spying scheme or spying on other schools and sending and a former assistant at this point to watch other games and practice. Or I don't know, practice must have just been games, but still.
It's just
But
funny, so yeah, just add that to it. All right, ready to move on to strong safety position,
yep,
where we have Antonio Stevens, who is a 6'2", 217-pound senior. He played high school ball in Tennessee. As a redshirt junior, he appeared in all 12 games with 3 starts. He finished with 17 tackles and 2 fumble recoveries on the season, ranking second in the Big Ten and 19th nationally in fumble recoveries. So he's got a nose for the ball if he sees it on the floor, ground, whatever you want to call the turf, and he gets there and can get those fumble recoveries. As a junior, he appeared in, it says in the final 13 games of the year, which would be all the games of the year. Recorded a career high 8 tackles, made a stop in each of the last 4 games of the season. He racked up a career high 3 tackles against Northwestern on November 19th that season. He did not see action as a sophomore. He appeared in 5 games as a reserve as a freshman and was a 3-star recruit by ESPN out of high school. So, any more you want to add on him there?
yeah. It's Antonio Stevens, just a guy who's been at Purdue all 4 years at this point. So
So,
um,
he's a true defensive back that's got he's in the second year in this program, in this scheme
yep.
of Ryan Walters. So that's encouraging that hopefully he's grasped that better and can.
Yep, and I think, yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to gauge, mid-season at the end of the year, whatever. We're going to have a better feel for like how things are going, and I think it'll be exciting to see like just a lot of these guys who are in either year 2 or bringing in talented guys from other big schools, like real talented guys to take on some of that, take on those roles of being like the stoppers and the lockdown corners and things like that. So I'm really excited to continue to see him develop. So Sterling Smith, he's our other strong safety, projected to back up Antonio Stevens. He's a transfer sophomore from Holy Cross. He is a 6'1" and 192. So last year, he as a freshman at Holy Cross, he produced 7 tackles and 1 pass breakup, starting at strong safety. And to start the year there. He also had 4 tackles in the QB hurry in the victory against Colgate on September 23rd, and then he played high school football at Cathedral High School. So that's a indie school. So it's good to bring a guy like that back. You after a year of development at a kind of a lower level program.
So moving to the free safety position, I really don't think we have to talk a whole bunch about this next guy because we all know him. One, because of that last name that's a legacy at Purdue at this point. Dylan Thieneman, a sophomore, 6 foot, 207-pound sophomore, yeah. As a freshman, there are just so many accolades to name. Like, yeah, he was just a stud last year. And I believe he tied Ricardo Allen's interceptions on the season. He had 6. I don't know if you have that down, but I just remember seeing it at some point. I thought, and
Yeah, let's see. I mean 5 5-time Big Ten Freshman of the Week.
Just the
That's the first offender in conference history to win a weekly award 5 times in a single season. As you said, he had 6 interceptions last year, which I can't remember if it broke or tied. I remember seeing that somewhere. We don't have it on our notes here, but the other thing with Dylan is that he obviously had a really good freshman year. I think to some degree, I think a lot of this goes into the fact that like he's kind of a ball hawk type, like free safety. Like he really went for those interceptions. He had a lot of tackles. He led the team last year with 106 tackles, which I think is really great. But I'm also like, I think it's kind of a story of last
as a
year
safety position.
that's not great. We don't want our strong safety to be our leading
Especially when
tackler.
he's playing 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, usually 20 plus yards behind the line of scrimmage, and like he did. But like he grasped Walter's, uh, scheme, and I just think this year's going to be another huge year for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just going to keep growing with him.
Yeah, the thing with him too is I'm just like it's real good to get that guy with both of his brothers, Brennan, I think, and
Was one of them.
Jake. So I think they sound familiar. Yeah, I don't know if I have that on here there, but basically it's brother of multiple Purdue football players. They
Pretty
like
recent football player,
yeah,
yeah.
recent players, and Jake went to the NFL, and I think he was on the 49ers for a year or two. So like definitely has that good lineage with his brothers and following in their footsteps. I hope this year that the rest of the defensive around him can kind of like, beef up a little bit. Like, it's okay that he's the leading tackler, but it's like, we don't want that. Like, we want it to be a linebacker, most likely, something like that, kind of a stopper up front. So we're not giving up as many yards.
Yeah, again, like I said, we don't want a free safety who's playing 20 plus yards behind the line of scrimmage to be our leading tackler because that means we're giving up a lot of big yards. So,
Yeah.
however, he did come up and make some big plays running downfield. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
fourth down.
he definitely he's very intelligent and he can read the play very well and he gets downfield very quickly. So like not all of those were just because they were busted plays. Like some of that's like he knew it was running plays, knew where it was going, and he was getting downhill very fast. So that is it's a redeeming aspect to it. I think one thing this year, I mean, he's received a whole bunch of preseason accolades, things like that. I think my biggest hope for him like this season is that like he could kind of continue and grow in that manner. I know sometimes when you have like one really big year, I like that pressure could be a lot. So I'm hoping that the pressure doesn't really get to him and that we can continue to see him have a very successful career at Purdue. I think he will. I just think and all the word out on him too is that he's just really he works so hard. Like this is a guy who I think the coaching staff has the utmost confidence in, and we're just going to see him have a really good career at Purdue.
And hopefully his freshman year was kind of a eye opener for teams coming in. They know they want to not throw near him. And I mean, as a safety, nobody really throws near him. He just goes wherever the ball. He's like you said, he's a ball hawk. So it's just they're, he'll be a stud this year, and interested to see where that goes. Backing up Thieneman, hopefully we don't see this too much, but I mean, backing up a guy like that, we got Joseph Jefferson II as a sophomore at 6 foot, 190 pounds from Pike, so Indy area guy again, and as a redshirt freshman, backed up Thieneman most likely, and he appeared in 11 games last year, mostly on special teams. He had only 2 tackles on the game, both against IU, so good for him. Crush them Hoosiers. And as a freshman, he appeared in 1 game against Indiana State.
Yeah, this is a soft local Indiana guy, sophomore. I mean, unfortunately, to some extent, as long as Dylan Thieneman's here and not injured, he's kind of going to be in the shadows a little bit. But definitely kudos to him for sticking around, kind of knowing that like playing time is not going to be the easiest to come by with a guy like Dylan in front of him. But all right, so
And then, I'll go ahead and introduce this part. All right, so this position that we're going to talk about next is kind of a Walters position, I think. We have it labeled as a star, and from our research on it, it's a safety linebacker hybrid kind of. And I will let Alex talk more about that because he did more research on it than I did because he's just a better person than I am. So,
Well, this star position. It's new to the Boilermakers. I'd have to really go back even a little further to see like if Ryan Walters used this much at Illinois. But this is a position and it's kind of a scheme like that's been around for a while. Going back in some research, I've been seeing that some SEC schools have been using it for several years and things like that. So it's been around, but it's new to us. So I wrote down a couple things on it just to help familiarize us with it a little bit.
it never hurts to take stuff from SEC schools because
Yeah,
obviously that's what a lot of people, when they think of college football, they think of the SEC schools. And
yeah,
so if we're taking some stuff from them, obviously it can't hurt because they have the big athletic guys in the backfield that we're starting to get with Walters as our coach. So hopefully we can
yeah.
make it work.
Just a quick little rundown on it, and I mean we're going to talk about this more like in our schedule and kind of like what we expect for the year a little bit. We'll touch on it some more, but star position, and I kind of took this from Bleacher Report. So according to Bleacher Report, it's often used in a 4-2-5 scheme, four down linemen, two linebackers, and five defensive backs. Um, in the 4-2-5, the star position it's the key to the defense. So like this is it is the centerpiece. The star is a hybrid safety type that can play both outside linebacker, or I guess can also play outside linebacker. So it's like what an outside linebacker would be in a 4-3 system. So um, this style, this position, this style of defense, it was designed to help keep the defense on the field against spread offenses and help limit substitutions. The third safety is talented enough to be a coverage guy, but his strength is against the run. So this is, that touches a little bit on that. If somebody's in hurry up offense, this is a good defensive style that's going to be better against that, and the players are not going to get as tired and things like that. So I guess that's kind of a brief rundown of it. I'm still learning on that some. Definitely going to have to do some more research, and as the season goes along and as we see it before our eyes, like we will certainly break it down more and try and explain that better for those of us who are interested in knowing what that looks like and things like that. But that's kind of the brief overview for now. Um, so with that, at the star position, the projected starter at this point, with still like I think we still have a week of camp. I can't remember if it's a week or two. We might have,
First game's the 31st, so I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
sure that works.
I think camp normally runs 3-ish weeks, if I remember right. So I'll definitely have to like check on that too. But first guy we have Kendrick Breedlove.
Probably Kendrick.
Kendrick, yeah. Really cool last name, Breedlove. It's not something you hear every day, but
And don't we have a running back with that name also
um,
from Illinois?
Reggie Love. But
I thought it was Breedlove too.
no, yeah, it's Reggie Love. So, but similar. um, Kendrick Breedlove, he's a transfer junior. He's 5'11". He's 185 pounds. So that's when they say like the outside linebacker safety mix. I mean 5'11", 185, like it's borderline. So he's a transfer from Colorado. As a redshirt sophomore at Colorado, he played 9 games. He recorded 12 tackles, with 11 of them being unassisted, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 forced fumble. Against Colorado State, he filled in for Travis Hunter, who is obviously a big name. Big name. Well, he played both sides of the ball. He was wide receiver, cornerback, so big name out at Colorado. And during that game, he recorded 5 tackles and 1 tackle for a loss, and those were both career highs. He had a fumble. He returned a fumble on a 2-point conversion against Oregon State for a defensive conversion, and yeah.
So he's got some familiarity with a team where we'll be playing this year, and hopefully can give us some insight on them to help the team.
Yeah, and I mean he also played at 2 seasons at Ole Miss, so like he's an upperclassman at this point, but transferred twice, which uh, we hope
That's
that he
college
sticks.
football. That's college
Yeah,
football.
that is college football. We hope he sticks with the Boilermakers for his junior and senior year, but we'll see as it goes. But this is another guy who's just a 4-star prospect out of high school, number 8 player from Tennessee, number 38 cornerback on the in his class. So another talented guy. I think we're just going to see more and more of that with Ryan Walters with his pedigree of sending cornerback safeties to the NFL. So
All right, and then moving into the projected second string for the star position is Salim Turner Mohammed, a transfer senior from Stanford, so another intelligent guy. 6 foot 195. In 2023, as a graduate, he did not appear in any games due to an injury. He is a former 2-time Pac-12 All Academic Honor person, and in 2022 as a senior at Stanford, he played in 12 games, totaled 8 tackles on the year, put up a season high 4 total tackles against Oregon State. So another person that's familiar with a team we're playing this year and can hopefully give us some insight on things we need to watch against them. And just let you
yeah,
go.
I mean this is just an old player this last year. I mean, he's obviously very intelligent with his all academic honor roll for multiple years and things like that. We hope that a guy who was sat down the whole year last year, we hope that he could stay healthy this year. He's definitely one 6 foot 195. I think he's on that star position. He's one that we could see flex a little bit from that linebacker ish role. And I think we're going to need that this year. So I think our linebackers are maybe one of those positions where we have a little less depth. So I think I'll be interested to see if the star position kind of flexes that way a little more. But especially they say with the star being a run stopper position, I think obviously with a highly touted secondary, that star position is going to be very needed to be able to stop the run a little more and assist those linebackers and linemen. So definitely going to be, and he's our last player for today. So,
And as we close up here after a little over an hour of the show, if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like on there. It helps the algorithm get us out there more so we can talk more, get more information out, and hopefully better information out as we are new to this and trying to just start something up. We can get things going for Purdue football and get people excited about it like they are for our basketball team.
Yep. The only other thing I have to say today is, I mean, we're 20 days away from the football season starting, so basically 3 weeks. But getting pretty excited for football season. I'm excited to, I'm glad that this year we have a good kind of, I hope it's a ramp up game at Indiana State. So we're looking forward to get this season started. And, in our next upcoming show, we'll talk more about, offense and defensive scheme and kind of our anticipations for the year and things like that, like a little more breakdown, less player related. Obviously, in the first 2 shows, we've covered offensive and defensive personnel. We're going to talk more about the schedule, kind of expectations, and that.
Give each of our predictions on our record next year and see if I can keep that do a little better in my record this year than I did last year on the Boiler Diehards admin predictions because I did not do well last year. So
Yeah,
I
but
had a little more hope than what we performed, but like I said, with the second year under Walters, I'm confident this year that we are going to be better. Obviously, it's with one of the toughest schedules in the whole country. It's not going to be easy, but
Yeah.
nobody really wants an easy schedule. I mean, maybe SEC teams that Ohio State teams that like to play those nobodies early on, but playing the big schools early will help our team get our name out there and show off what Ryan Walters has to offer, and just yeah.
Yep, and in the next couple of weeks too, we're gonna ramp up marketing a little bit for this, and we'll get some pre-show Facebook posts out there in the Boiler Diehards page to help keep us on keep us ahead. Like, we'll give people more time ahead to like prepare for this and things like that to help that out. So we're gonna definitely start posting a little more, getting it ramped up a little more as we get closer to the season, and really hope to have a good turnout throughout the season if we can. Get the recap shows. I think will be a little better. Just getting people in here. Hopefully, get some people chatting and get some more interaction. So
And
we're
yeah,
just
get
look.
some more feedback from, because we all know Purdue's a basketball school, but we're also a football school, and we've had recent success. And I mean, we have arguably one of the better quarterbacks of all time with Breeze, and just we just want to get Purdue football up to a level where it is with basketball, and let's keep the excitement going and just keep giving us information on to help us, and
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
make this the best show we can.
Yep.
Anything else you got?
No, I think we covered all we could today. So
All right.
thanks
Yes.
to anyone for tuning in, for the defensive personnel breakdown, and um, definitely just we'll post this out there, and if you see this later, like if you could just give us feedback as Chris said, and as we continue to grow. So
Yeah, like I said, just give us some likes on Facebook, on the Diehards app page or whatever. If you're watching on there, if you're watching YouTube, give us likes there, whatever, just to help us out a little bit. All right. Thank you all. We will see you on Wednesday, and we will be doing our season overview, like Alex said earlier. And boiler up.
put her up.